All right, welcome to this live episode. I'm Joseph Lewin, and today I'm going to be interviewing Andy Murphy. This is going out on Andy's page, so you're probably familiar with him already. But we were just having a conversation about business intelligence and the importance of it, and I was like, man, we should just have this same conversation live so that more people can really understand better the importance of business intelligence and when you should think about applying that. So Andy Murphy from Integrity Data Insights. Really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joseph. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to business intelligence, I think the best place to start is just what does that term mean? What does the term business intelligence mean?
Sure. In a nutshell, it's kind of a platform that allows business users to very easily and quickly get answers to questions they need within their business. So it can be as simple as, what were my sales last month, to, how's this branch doing versus this other branch? What's the top performing sales reps? Where are we with, manufacturing? What are the, any kind of thing um, that you can measure and that really helps your business. There's generally two components to it. There's kind of a internal or a behind the scenes, I guess I'd say more part of it, which is more like your warehouse or your data warehouse, your data lake, whatever information you have that's kind of storing the information. And then kind of the second part is more the visual side, the data visualization platform. That's the part that the users would interact with. That's your, the two biggest platforms are Tableau and Power BI, but there are also many other ones as well. But it all comes down to just helping your business make better decisions. And, it's hard to do that this day and age without good information.
So it sounds like you have your data that you've been collecting. So we've all heard, yeah, you need to collect data, but then now you have all this data. The idea of data intelligence is, well, how do you actually use the information and visualize it correctly, get the data to tell the right story so you can actually make informed decisions about your business, whether it would be marketing, sales, financial, or behind the scenes like operations, warehousing, logistics. Am I on the right trail?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it can, and obviously every business is different and every business has different parts that they need to focus on. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because the one part that I kind of didn't cover in your first question is generally what sets business intelligence apart is it's generally collecting data from multiple business systems. So typical business will have a CRM system that manages their sales and their leads. They'll have, marketing system, possibly. They'll have obviously an accounting system of some sort. Usually they'll have, multiple, either industry specific or proprietary systems. And this is the real benefit of business intelligence is if set up correctly, it can reach across all of those systems, and you can answer questions that you couldn't otherwise do by looking at just one. You can look at your accounting system and see, how much did we spend on this item, or what were our sales, but to really say, how were sales with, prospects that were, touched 2 or 3 times by our sales reps, what was the conversion rate? It can give you just way more insights when it's because of the fact that it can kind of touch all of your business systems that you have.
Okay, so you've got data coming in from multiple different systems, and so the idea is that you're using some kind of a data analytics platform to pull all of that information together into one spot, so you can search across multiple systems. Now you're not just depending on making those decisions from one system, but you're kind of aggregating everything together.
Correct. And, another benefit that you get is the automation of it, right? I mean, a lot of companies will have some level of either Excel or Google Docs, or, something being done manually. Maybe it's Marion accounting that, has to pull all these reports together for the monthly planning meeting or this and that. And with the right systems and stuff in place, the business intelligence, you can take a lot of the manual work out of it, where once everything's up and running, your users can go to a website with a couple clicks of the mouse, get to, real simple and easy to use dashboards or data points, whatever you need to kind of to get the information that you need. But the automation is another huge part of it, and the time savings. And a lot of people have a lot of staff that's spending a lot of time manually assembling reports, and sometimes there's reports that there's no way it would be feasible even for someone to be able to assemble. So I do have a blog post I put together on this too, which we can eventually drop in the comments. But kind of when do you decide when to get off Excel or not? So, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of cover this to a degree, but why is business intelligence important? What I mean, I guess we could maybe even answer this like, okay, so you're covering a lot of things in Excel already. Why would you invest money in a business intelligence or a data analytics platform so you can get business intelligence?
Right. And the first answer, just from a real high level point of view, and it may sound a little cliche, but you've probably heard the saying, data is the new oil, and it's the most valuable resource that there is. So I think the companies that can leverage the data that they have successfully are going to have a lot more better chance of succeeding in the future, and than those that neglect that area. So it can be a strategic advantage. It can be, but it's kind of table stakes at this point. I mean, you almost have to kind of have those answers quickly, or depending on your industry and such. But your customers are not going to be very tolerant of you having to take forever to get back to them on certain things, or hey, can you help me with this problem I'm having? And if you don't have the right systems and such in place, and it takes a long time, or takes somebody a lot of time to pull the information. So question or topic or reason one, sorry, is I would say efficiency and cost savings. Obviously, if you're having somebody spend, I know I talked to someone just the other day that said, they had this monthly meeting, and it would basically take 2 or 3 people, like, a week to prepare everything for this, executive meeting, all the stuff they had to prepare. So, obviously a lot of time savings is a big part of it. Competitive advantage, you can delight your customers in a way maybe that others can't, because of the data points and such that you have. It's obviously, we've all had an experience where, a company didn't have the right something in place, and, it could be a product you're trying online, and maybe, that you send you an email, hey, you should try out this new feature. And, you've already tried it, like, or you should go into the, and it just makes them look really bad. So that's another, just being able to have that good relationship with your customers. And, without getting into too much of it, I mean, AI is already here. It's coming. It's not going away.
Yep.
And if you don't have your data in place, you're going to be left behind. Obviously right now you're seeing with AI, obviously, like ChatGPT, in that when you're, it's more of a externally facing for a lot of people, right? You don't necessarily, it doesn't have context of your data. But obviously, as more and more things start getting, the game changes, where people are going to want to do that, and they're already doing it on their own data and their own their own unique things. And if you don't have kind of the platform in place where you have kind of all your data in a easily accessible place, it's AI is not worth anything without data. So that's another huge reason to really consider it.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things are coming up in there. So you're talking about customer experience, and the idea that if you can't get the data fast enough, it creates a really bad customer experience. I mean, I can give an example of that from a company I used to work for, where it was an engineering software company, and we would help them, with, I don't need to go into the details, but managing data around their CAD models. And the typical way that it would work would be an engineer would reach out and ask for a CAD model of a specific product that a manufacturer would sell. And it would take as much as a week for the engineer to get even a response back, sometimes from the company on the other end. And by that point, they've already, if they could find that model online from somebody else, they're just going to go download it and get that information. And so, being able to have that information readily available could be the difference between landing a $250,000, maybe even $2 million product order or not. And so
Right.
that's a really powerful point. And then, yeah, you talked about automation. So you've got a lot of time invested into doing manual processes to pull together reports or pull together data from multiple platforms. So you could, in theory, have somebody spend their time on much more efficient things than creating reports, much higher value things, because that could be done with a little bit of work on the background. So something that's going through my mind at this point, and I think there'll be a lot of people who are listening that'll feel the same way, is, well, shoot, that's going to be really expensive to put that together. And, especially if you're going to be pulling all that data from multiple systems and you're going to have, automation set up, that's probably something that's limited to companies with big budgets. Is that the right way to think about it? Is business intelligence really limited to bigger companies, or is there value that smaller companies can get?
Yeah, excellent question and point. It used to be, right? I mean, if you asked me that question, 5, 10 years ago, it definitely, there was definitely a more of a gate for the bigger companies. But no, absolutely not. I mean, nowadays with all the, the products out there in the cloud, and you can set up something, or have somebody that knows how to set it up in a very relatively short period of time. The tools and technology are just getting better, as far as being able to, you know, everybody's trying to move data around, right? So there's a lot of advancements in pipeline technology and tools that let you kind of move data from point A to point B. But you definitely can get value out of it without, breaking the bank and spending, an outrageous amount of money. Even like, data visualization tool like Power BI, the desktop version is free, and it's mostly free for, it's a minimal amount. I think it's $10 a month for like a seat to use that. So it's definitely
Okay.
not cost prohibitive. Obviously, it's going to, it just depends on how many different things you have going on. Another thing now with, everything has an API or a connector. So that can kind of take a lot of the work out of that too. There's a lot of drag and drop tools. Tableau has one, Tableau
Okay.
Prep, that lets you kind of, without having to be an expert, you can kind of drag and drop and get the data in a place where you can start to make decisions. So definitely not. I mean, it's obviously it's there's certain things where once you get to a certain level or complexity, obviously it's going to be some kind of an investment, but absolutely not. I mean, a company, definitely companies can leverage it. And it's better than ever than it used to be. It's really great time to think about it.
So especially when we're talking about a smaller company looking to invest in business intelligence and into a data analytics platform, it's really important that they get it right the first time, because you can spend a lot of money getting all this stuff set up and then it doesn't end up doing what you wanted. And
Right.
the initial idea sounds like it's not going to be super expensive, and then you build it out and it doesn't do what you want, and then you need somebody to come in and customize it all. So what are some of the common pitfalls that you see um, the companies make when they're looking to implement a data analytics platform so that they can get
Yeah.
better business intelligence?
Yeah, great question. Two things I will say. First is, a big mistake people make is they don't talk to the end users. Sometimes depends on the size of the company, but say it's a company with 30, 50 employees, and that this is going to be something used by sales, and you don't involve the sales in the process. It's harder, right? Because you're asking people to kind of change what they're doing.
Yep.
Maybe they used to get a spreadsheet and they used to get it a certain way, and you're asking someone to change, and now obviously change is always tough for people. So that would be my first thing, is make sure you do whatever you can to try to engage the users. Obviously, you're not going to be able to, to 100% appease what they're thinking, but if you can get them involved, that's a huge win. And obviously, I'm talking for people that are, don't really have much in place. It's probably a different story for someone that has something that isn't maybe working, but mainly for people that are kind of getting started. I would say number one thing is the users. The second one I would say is, in my experience, and I kind of mentioned at the beginning, your first question, I think, when you were asking about it, is, what are the components? And I kind of said there's like a back end component of business intelligence, kind of like the
Yep.
data store, and then there's the front side, which is more the sexier, the the visuals, the user interface. I find that people kind of sometimes will, it's kind of a scale, right? And I think sometimes people will go too far one way or the other. There's people that will spend, months and months just messing with the warehouse, trying to get it just perfect, and
Yep.
don't touch the visuals at all. There's people that go to the other extreme, and they don't, hey, what I don't need this warehouse. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna point my Power BI tool right to the data and get at it. And then sometimes you end up with problems down the line. So I think a balance of those two is good. um, I also am like a huge fan of, kind of an agile methodology, or just kind of a, MVP, minimum viable product,
Yep.
where you kind of try it out. So say, you had a company and you were trying to, you didn't have much in place, and you pick maybe a real straightforward business question that you can't really easily get to today. Maybe it's, just your sales by branch or sales by month or the trend, something simple, and kind of test out the waters of kind of having it, go all the way through with, maybe you decide on such and such platform for a data warehouse, and maybe you decide on, Tableau or Power BI for the visuals. But kind of, if you or the team is working on it, kind of challenge them to, like, okay, let's get one thing up and running, all the way through, and then you can kind of adjust, because you can always pivot and change later. And then I think that tends to be much more successful. But I think a lot of people get stuck either one side or the other. They'll get super excited and they point their, the tool right to the stuff, and then, there's not enough infrastructure and backbone. So then they want to change something, and then the infrastructure isn't there. Or then the opposite happens, where you spend so much time on the foundation and the warehouse stuff that, then by the time you get to the visuals, you're like, crap, I should have probably set it up a different way, or this and that. So those
Yeah.
are kind of the
It's
two.
almost like every layer you add adds a layer of complexity that you have to fix later. I mean, I could give a totally offhanded example, but I think it illustrates the point. It's like, if you are going to create something um, for an end user to fill out a questionnaire, if you start out where you just go, hey, let's just create something that's 10 questions, and we're going to put it in type form, and then we're going to look at all the answers manually to start out. And this is totally not feasible once we're getting 500 requests like that a month. But let's start with 10 questions. Then you get the 10 questions, you analyze them, then you do whatever you need to do on the back end with those answers. And then you go, okay, let's move it up to 20 questions, and we'll do those manually. Okay, now we've gotten an idea of what types of questions we get. Let's create categories on the back end and have it automatically categorize those questions. And then
Right.
finally you get up to your like 50 question survey that you need, that runs through, automation on the back end, and automatically categorizes and sends an email back to the person with the answers. And it's like, but if you start with that end state, every single time you need to fix anything, you have to go back through 3 or 4 separate systems to fix it. So it's like, start simple, kind of the idea of crawl, walk, run as you build it up. But at the same
Yeah.
time, and this kind of brings us into the next part of the conversation, is to do that, you need to understand what it is you're looking to get out of it. And so, what are some of the key mindsets that you need to create a business intelligence strategy that's going to help you make sure that as you're doing that agile approach, that you're actually building an end product that's going to serve your needs?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. I mean, I think it was Peter Drucker maybe that said, what gets measured gets done, or something like that. Deming or Drucker, one of those guys. So I think, I would start kind of in a lo-fi kind of, on a piece of paper, even start with what are the biggest things that we have to know, like on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever that might be. But really start simple and small, and kind of have that curious mindset, kind of like, well, why, like the kid where you asked, the question why all the time. But I think really, and it's difficult to do, but I think too, if you think like, okay, who's going to use this? Who's going to use this information, and what do you want them to do with it? I know one time I worked for someone, and he had a great quote. I forgot exactly what it was, but it's basically like, if you hand someone a report and you can't really tell them exactly what you want them to do with it, like, it's something like I'd question the effectiveness of the report or something like that. So I think really trying to begin with the end in mind, or keep throwing out all these famous sayings,
Stephen
but
Covey.
but it's
Love it.
kind of it's true. I mean, if you so many times, I mean, now that's the challenges with technology, right? It's so easy to just, I mean, I could write it for this call in 2 minutes, play around and point to some data and have a graph and a nice thing for you, and there's huge value in that. But I think taking the time to kind of stop and think, like, okay, what do we need, or when do we need this? Do we need, okay, the sales data, do we really need to look at this every day? Can we look at it every week? But I think just kind of that, really try to ask the right questions, and it goes back to the users again. I mean, really try to get them involved, like, maybe sit down with them and see. I know one of my most successful projects I had as a in this journey that I'm on was sitting down with these sales reps at one of my clients and like seeing what they're doing. And then that was like a light bulb went off, like, wait, I can make this better. But I think the same thing with analytics, like see what they're doing, really get in touch with who's going to use it, what are they going to do with it, and then the kind of the answers will come fairly easily, or at least more easily than starting with the other way around. But I think a curious mindset, and that is key to really. I mean, it's hard as a tech guy even really to say that, but you kind of have to, the technology should be kind of a secondary or an afterthought back after you kind of really think of what you want to do and plan it, and then then you can kind of evaluate technology and what's the best way to do it after you've kind of get that pretty solidified.
Yeah, I mean, an example of that would be CFO needs to report to the board on a quarterly basis on really specific things. And if they don't, I mean, if they just have an overwhelming amount of data coming in, it could all be right. It could be great, relevant reports, but you can almost make it take longer for them to be able to create their quarterly report. Whereas if you know ahead of time exactly what they're going to need, maybe on a monthly basis, you have it report one way, and then on a quarterly basis, it aggregates just the right information so that they can just pull that information. They've kind of been checking it all along, taking a glance at the dashboard and going, each month, so they know what's going on. And then that final dashboard basically just spits out exactly what they need to then focus more on how do I tell this story correctly to the board, rather than how do I go find the right information at the right time. But if you don't know what the CFO needs before you start collecting, before you start aggregating the data or creating reports, there's no way that you're going to end up creating something like that.
Right. Yeah. Great points. Yeah, it definitely happens, and it's a trial and error. I think you sometimes have to kind of put yourself out there and try some things, and know that you're not always going to get it 100% right, but eventually, if you keep asking the right questions, you will. So
I love it. Yeah, well, I think that's really a great spot to stop, because the point of this call was really, or the point of this live was really to talk about the basics. What is it? What is business intelligence? Why is it important? Who is it for? And how should you start thinking about it? For people who are here and they're getting ready to try to implement this stuff, how should they be thinking about it? And yeah, well, Andy, thank you so much for laying all that out and sharing all that information. It was super helpful for me too, just to understand better how business intelligence works. And I know anybody listening is going to benefit from hearing your expertise as well.
thanks, Joseph. Really appreciate it, and thank you all for watching.